Welcome, Cowboy fans, to 5 Point Logic, where we take the psychology, I'm the psychologist, of the Cowboys and we solve it. We're not complaining, we're trying to find solutions. But it means analyzing data, it means analyzing information, it means analyzing stuff over time, trends, and that sort of thing. So we got this, we're kind of in a pickle here because there are, just as you have in politics, you have capitalism, and you have communism, and you have different kinds of tyrannies. You have socialism. In the NFL, you have different offensive schemes, some that are great theories, some that are parts of an offense, and some that are they're just blatantly failures over the last 20 years. But because they're simple, because they promise big gains, this is just, you can kind of see where I'm going with this. That a lot of times many GMs and coaches get sucked into them, but they're failures. They really are failures. When it first came out, the West Coast offense was not my favorite. I think as a Cowboy fan, it was representative of the 49ers, especially in, when Bill Walsh and, the catch and that sort of thing. So I was like, I hated it. Over time, though, if you remember, Bill Walsh and Don Coryell had some exchanges. Bill Walsh said, Don Coryell, your offense requires quite a bit of talent. Actually, quite a bit of different kinds of resources that are really elite. You need 2 receivers with elite speed. You need a tight end who can get mid to deep and essentially draw enough attention that the middle of the field is pulling in the linebackers in coverage. You need a strong running back like Chuck Muncie was. You need somebody who's going to straight ahead power. You can't have finesse. You can't have anything, because the idea is push the running game right into the teeth of the linebackers in such a way that 5 yards per carry, 4 or 5 yards per carry worries them. Now, here's the most important part. In the Coryell offense, you need motion, and you need differing personnel. If you don't have those things, if you're basically just lining up and running, all of a sudden things break down very quickly. Especially since that if you're a cornerback studying a team, you go, okay, I basically know their tendencies. Go back and watch there's a quote by Matt Eberflus in 2019. He's talking about the Dallas offense under Kellen. And he said, well, they basically run the same route combinations. And after a while, you just kind of know what's coming. Basically, you can do the math. After 10 yards, think about the route tree. After 10 yards, there's only a couple things that can possibly happen. And if you don't have elite speed at your wide receiver, you're doomed. You're doomed. I don't care how tricky you think you are. Just start counting. Count if you're not a fast receiver. Count what happens, how many seconds you need to get downfield 10 and then into a cut. You need almost 4 to 5 seconds. If you overload the line at that point, and you don't have fast receivers, and you don't have anything else to offset what's happening at the line of scrimmage, like motion, like different personnel packages, and especially play action, you are going to end up with your receivers running into coverage that they know is coming. Vic Fangio did it. Everything Jason Garrett over time did it. It's just you're setting yourself up for failure. But let's do the math here. Over the last 20 years, which offense has been represented in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl more than any other scheme? Which offense? The West Coast offense, okay? And it's been evolving over time that you have the modern West Coast offense. So you have the Shanahans and McVays and the Andy Reids. Andy Reid has really taken a basic West Coast offense that he took from Bill Walsh, and he molded it into something that there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of kind of pieces moving to offset the defense. And you take that, now look at the Coryell offense. Don Coryell said, hey, you need these pieces. If you don't have it, it's not going to work. And we've had our problems. You know my issue with Jason Garrett, that I don't feel he's a coach. He is a great historian. He's a great camp director, not a coach. I would love to see anybody show me footage of Jason directly coaching, like Dan Quinn coaches, like a real offensive coordinator coaches. You're going to see the same thing with Kellen Moore. He's more of a philosopher. He's kind of like, well, I'll bet if we do this and this, it'll trick him. Like, his creative plays aren't even all that creative. They're stupid. It's almost like one of the things that I feel like Kellen, he doesn't have something called theory of mind. Ooh, I know it's a big word. It's something that really comes from from ASD, but it's really not understanding the perspective of somebody else. And I think Kellen doesn't really understand that a defense is an intelligent, organic entity that continues to evolve and mold over a game and says, we know what you're doing. And if you watch Kellen by the end of the season and sometimes in the fourth quarter, he gets so repetitive because he's not anticipating that his scheme needs to change because the defense is changing. But other than maybe, Pittsburgh in, let's see, I think it's 2009, Pittsburgh and Arizona. I think that's really the last time that the Coryell offense was in a Super Bowl and was maybe even winning. You could argue that Pittsburgh didn't win that Super Bowl without James Harrison intercepting that pass and going the distance. However, I will concede that the Coryell offense was in that Super Bowl. Other than that, it is largely wiped out or caused many different teams. Back when Baltimore won, and it was really interesting. Baltimore was in the Super Bowl, was moving along, had Ray Rice, first 8 games of the season, and all of a sudden Cam Cameron, who runs the same offense as Norv Turner and Jason Garrett, who took basically the whole offense from Norv Turner. Cam Cameron runs the offense just like Jason Garrett and Kellen Moore. He's fired. And they put in Jim Caldwell and they said, stop this long distance attempts all game and just run the ball, short pass. They had Torrey Smith, I think that was his name, as the only wide receiver with some speed. So it didn't fall into what Don Coryell said they could do, right? So it's really, we're going to run into problems with the Coryell offense because it's really only a partial part of an offense now. There are long passes in the West Coast offense, but there's a lot of lateral moving parts. With the Coryell offense, unless you have motion, play action, differing personnel packages, and a successful straight-ahead running game, you're really not going to offset the defense's attack on the wide receivers. You're not. But it's not me that's saying this. It's the league's success. Last 20 years, other than Peyton Manning's Colts, and really he started winning. The only time he won was when he threw 10 times to Joseph Adai in that Super Bowl, which is a West Coast idea. Advance the ball with a short pass. And then if you go before that, it's Warner's Rams. And that's really all you have. Maybe Arians with Kurt Warner, and maybe what the Steelers had. Maybe in that Super Bowl, I'll give you that. Other than that, largely it's not working. But those coaches, they come in with a lot of promises of the long pass. It's kind of like the intermittent reinforcement trick that Las Vegas has. If you're at a slot machine, you're like, I'll keep putting in the coin because I'll lose 20. But what if I hit? Then I'll get 15, 20, whatever. I don't know how much 100, whatever your gain is, you're going to think is offset. Well, like a Kellen Moore will say, that's all right. I'll keep throwing in completions. We'll get sacked. I don't care because one of my passes, when it connects, that's a touchdown. If I do that 4 or 5 times, that's 5 touchdowns. That's stupid. Now, there's 3 basic offenses that are going on in the NFL right now. There's the West Coast offense, there's the Coryell, and there's the Earnhardt Perkins. Okay, Earnhardt Perkins is almost exclusively the Patriots. It's really something that Bill Parcells endorsed, really promoted, that kind of thing. So that's what Brady uses. But if you go back and look, even Steve Young said the Earnhardt Perkins is really basically a West Coast offense. It is high percentage passes, advance the ball that way. In fact, you look back at the Patriots, they really didn't have a long-term running game that required the bell cow. They had Corey Dillon, they had I can't remember all of them, but they really didn't have that feature to their offense. They really moved a lot. Kevin Falk, they used a lot of moving parts. They're always trying to offset what the defense is attempting to do. Brains, it makes sense. They won 7 Super Bowls. They won several Super Bowls doing that. That's good. Other than that, it's the West Coast offense. What are we looking right now with Shanahan? What are we looking at these? Those are all West Coast offenses. They are what is scaring teams, scaring defenses. Guess what's not? Anything that requires, that is the Coryell, it's the residue of the Coryell offenses, which are distance. It is a lot of promises, but after a while, it's just repetition, and it's sacking your quarterback, causing interceptions. Don Coryell said, throw in completions, I don't care. Well, if you're standing that long in the pocket, like Kellen made Dak do, go back and look, check my numbers, 2016, 26 sacks, 2017, 36 sacks. Kellen came in as offensive coordinator for Dak, 58 sacks. Why? Because he didn't want him to run anymore. Stay in the pocket like Dan Fouts. It's not 1980. It's not 1980 anymore. 1981, 82. No, these schemes are more complex than that. But Kellen has this dream. Kellen's just stupid. I don't care what vocabulary he is using to impress the Jones family, but he's a moron. And guess what? You look at Sirianni. What did Sirianni do? First 4 games of this season, the 2024 season going into 2025, first 4 games for the Eagles. Let Kellen do what he does. What happened? Jalen Hurts was really confused. The passing was off. It requires quite a bit of timing. But the problem is, it becomes stupid after a while. Sirianni picked up on that and said, basically, you can call plays, but you're going to call our running plays, and we're not going to do your stupid passing game because it's not really working. And so after a while, the receivers are getting frustrated. A lot of the fans are getting frustrated. The passing game doesn't look like it's succeeding at all because it's Kellen. Sirianni realized how absurd, fatuous, that Kellen really is. So why do we want that? Why would we want Schottenheimer? Why would we want Nussbaum? No. Guess what? We don't want any of those guys. We don't want Anthony Lynn. We don't want these guys that promote this basically antiquated offense that really will we'll have Sack Prescott. He will be Sack Prescott because he'll be standing there waiting for slow receivers to get open downfield while the teams, Jim Haslett, as a defensive coordinator, demonstrated how fragile the Coryell offense is, how flawed it is. He had Romo, and he just kept blitzing the middle of the field against Romo. And when Haslett faced Romo, and Haslett, I believe, was on the Washington Redskins, now the Commanders, overloaded the line. So if you have 5 blockers and you have 6 players, or you have 5 blockers and you're bringing players over here, this guy can't run over here and block these guys coming in from over there. So he was overloading the middle, and while Romo needed 4 seconds to throw, he was getting it in 3. Do the math. It's very simple. But Schottenheimer, the thing that Schottenheimer, I think, is trying to convince the Jones family right now is that he combined what Russell Westbrook knew of the West Coast offense. He knew what he knew of that, and he melded it with the Coryell offense, and that was let Russ cook. And they threw a lot of long distance passes. They failed. They were rotten. He was like, well, look at our statistics. That's the one thing about the Coryell offense is, look at our statistics. When you are losing 28-0, and you have a long pass game, and it's the 4th quarter, and your quarterback in like the 3rd quarter maybe has 180 yards, okay? The teams go to prevent, and this is what Jason Garrett just banked on, literally, because he'd come back to the Jones family and say, look at all the yards we got, because you start throwing long. You're throwing like 40-yard passes and stuff, and getting stopped at the goal line, not going in. All of a sudden, you get 300 yards like that. You're not getting touchdowns. You're not converting in the red zone. It's too short of an area, because the seeds, the molecules of your offense are really based on what? The longer pass. So when it becomes a tight area and you have slow receivers and you have no lateral misdirection going on, no lateral information that's deceiving the defense, it's a scheme, by the way, Landon McCool. It's a scheme, which means every single play is supposed to be a trick play. Every single play is supposed to cause a touchdown. If you don't understand that, you don't understand what a scheme is, because that's what it is. Landon McCool, one of those guys, you can go back and listen to some of those podcasts and realize he has no idea what he's talking about. Anyway, if you're looking at what the Cowboys need to do now, they need to be modernized. Maybe Dak doesn't have the fast arm motion in order to get the short pass out. Maybe he doesn't. But if they're going to do anything, they're going to have to build something, a lateral misdirection based on running, and they're going to have to get the tight ends involved, and then it becomes just like 1 or 2 times, take the shots downfield. Other than that, get things out lateral, get them more in the West Coast offense, because that's what's winning right now. The West Coast offense, statistically, is more representative in the postseason than any of the other ones. Any of the other ones. And yet, why Schottenheimer? Why Kellen? Why Anthony Lynn? Remember Hugh Jackson? Nope. We don't want. And by the way, that wide receiver coach that we had, that Robert Prince, he was terrible. Why? He was from those West Coast, from the Coryell offense days. Why are we stocking our engine with old Ford parts when we need Maserati? All right, that's where we are.